Welcome to the Word Weaver podcast, a literary place in cyberspace where I share tangible tips, tricks, and words of wisdom to help you achieve your dream of writing a book. I'm your host, Louise Johnson, a writer and the author of Behind the Red Door. Let's dive into today's chapter. Welcome back to the Word Weaver podcast. I'm your host, Louise Claire Johnson, and in today's episode, I want to talk to you about this Netflix documentary that I recently binge-watched. It's called America's Sweethearts, about the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, or the DCC as they are referred to. And you're probably wondering, what the hell did the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders have to do with writing? And I'm here to tell you exactly what they have to do with each other. And it's all about rejection. For me, while I was watching this docuseries, so if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. I believe there's 7 episodes, and it follows the entire season of the Dallas Cowboys. And it starts with the audition process of what it takes to become an NFL cheerleader. It is super competitive. Over 500 women compete for 36 spots. So you watch the audition process, and then they go to training camp and narrows it down even further to the 36 squad. And then you follow them throughout an entire season. It is riveting reality television. I actually ended up watching this entire series twice, which is probably why it's on my mind, and I wanted to record an entire episode about it. So I binge watched it once myself, and then I watched it also with my mom, who happened to be back in the 70s an Argos cheerleader. So if you're not familiar, the Toronto Argos are a CFL, a Canadian Football League team. So not quite NFL, but still a CFL professional Argos cheerleader nonetheless. And my sisters and I always love looking at old photos of her. So it was actually interesting for me to rewatch it again and hear my mom's viewpoint, since she actually has experience being a professional cheerleader at that level. Well, not quite at that level, but for the CFL. And she said back then it was a lot different. It really was more, she grew up being a gymnast. So for her as an Argos cheerleader, it's less about the dancing and more about the physical ability to do flips and pyramids. She was the top of the pyramid. She's quite petite and short. So she was always the top of this pyramid, doing backflips, flipping off, and more kind of your high school 1950s, if you've watched Grease, that kind of rah-rah cheerleading versus the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, which is a combination of jazz, hip hop, ballet, and also a rocket style kick line. They're also gymnasts as well. Anyway, just in terms of that, she noticed the difference, but also just she couldn't believe how naive and exploited these women are. She said she never felt like that. Again, 2 very different. We're talking about apples and oranges, but she did kind of relate to the feeling of when you say you are a professional cheerleader, some people think you're just this trophy to be objectified, whereas all of these women in this docuseries are incredibly intelligent. Some of them are orthodontists, one is a nurse. That's one of the biggest takeaways from watching it, is how undervalued and underpaid these elite athlete women are. They are incredible, impeccable technique, perfect physique. They train for years and years to compete for this spot. And then just the dichotomy of you have to remain this chaste, pure America's sweetheart while they put you on the field in this sexy, provocative outfit doing these sexual moves, because you're also supposed to entice the males, but also remain chaste and pure at the same time. The whole series really was about this dichotomy. It is insane to me that games last anywhere between 11 to 12-hour days. So they are working their full-time jobs, then rushing to perform at a game, not getting home until 2 a.m., going to their job the next day. They have to be available for practices. They are also getting injured left, right, and center. Most of the girls, they were saying, they're in their early 20s, so very peak physical fitness. They come out of being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and they're getting hip and foot surgeries. One of their signature moves is doing the jump splits during their big thunderstruck dance. So literally the jump splits, they're jumping in the air, landing on the ground in the splits with a big smile on their face and making it look simple. But doing that over and over again tears up their hips. Oh my God, their backs, their necks. So they are getting worked like a professional athlete. They are professional athletes and they're getting paid. I believe I read one cheerleader said that they're paid the equivalent minimum wage of someone who works at Chick-fil-A. Anyway, it's absolutely crazy. It's riveting television. And actually, I've seen a lot of articles released. I don't know if this is just my algorithm now sending me these articles, but basically saying that after everyone watched the series, they're recognizing how underpaid these women are for what they do. Also, not to mention, they're required to go to all these promotional events. They're in calendars, and I was watching it. They are sitting at a gym signing calendars, their photos in a pinup calendars. All these men are coming to get their signatures. And I know they're not making a dime off of those calendar sales. It's all going to the Cowboys Corporation. They're also required to do promotional social media videos around Christmas time. They perform on Thanksgiving Day. Just, it's not just performing on game day and doing their training during the week. They're expected to be these perfect, almost pageant-like figures, also going to senior residences, helping young kids, giving back to the community. Anyway, if you haven't seen America's Sweethearts about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders on Netflix and you're into kind of these, I wouldn't say it's trashy TV necessarily, it's a reality docu-series. I found it quite well done because you do get into, as a writer, I love going into the characterization and diving into some of the girls' backstories. They highlight a few of their lives, their boyfriends getting engaged, their full-time jobs, what they do off the field as well. And you always like to see a peek behind the curtain of what people are really like. So I found that part fascinating. And there's conflict, there's drama. You have kind of the drill sergeant, Devil Wears Prada, tough director who the girls are always trying to please, but also she's a bit of a nurturing mother hen at the same time. So the characterization, I live for that kind of thing, whether it's in a book or on screen. You definitely get all of that. You get a little bit of a narrative arc. So for the drama, the glitz, the glamour, it's worth a watch alone. But what I really want to talk about and my big takeaway from this series was how these cheerleaders handle criticism and rejection. As a writer, this is something that I really think we can take to heart. I should also note, if you haven't seen it, even though it's a light and fun docu-series, it definitely sheds a light and is perpetuating all of the things women have fought for years to change: equal pay, diversity in both race and body type. It drives one woman in particular to have an eating disorder, depression, low self-worth, where she actually has to remove herself from the squad for a year before returning to work on her mental health. So I just want to caveat by saying that I am aware this documentary isn't all kind of glitz and glamour. There are some darker undertones, but I do think it's very interesting and important to note that this is still going on today, where these beautiful, smart, talented, driven, incredible women are undervalued, objectified, and sold this shiny dream where they should feel lucky to simply just be there. They should feel lucky to almost be objectified and have their safety put at risk because there are so many other girls that wish they were in their place, and they shouldn't need financial compensation for all that they do, which is just absolutely bonkers and boggles my mind that this is still the world we live in. But again, it's important to note that this is still happening and why there is still inequality in the world. Anyway, all of that background to say is I loved it. I hope there's a season two. It was a really fun watch. But what we can learn, and the thing that I take away as a writer, is how they handled criticism and rejection. So like I said briefly, there's over 500 of them competing for 36 spots. Then they go to training camp. I believe there's 48 of them who are then cut down to the 36. So those 48, they still haven't made it, but they're chosen. They get to put on the uniform. They learn all of the dances. They train as though they are going to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. And then at the end, for some unlucky few, the dream is ripped away from them just as they're starting to envision and really see themselves on this DCC squad. And the thing is, all of these women are extremely talented. They have the technique, the physique, They have it all. It really is hard to narrow it down. There are just 36 spots, so they have to make tough cuts. And the reasons that they give some of the ones that they cut are so subjective, so arbitrary. It doesn't even really make sense. It could have been someone else completely. And the wild thing is, after they've put their heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into all of this, instead of reacting defensively or playing the victim, they all act so gracious and respond with gratitude. And that is something that I noted immediately. And I thought, wow. And it doesn't seem fake. It does not seem phony that they are putting it on. They genuinely are gracious. They hug the coaches who have just cut them for no reasons at all. Really just, oh, you're a little bit shorter than the other girl. Okay, you're cut. Your dream is ripped out from under you. And instead of saying, oh, that's so unfair, why her over me? They just say thank you so much for this opportunity. And they become even more determined to return the next year. They uproot their lives, they take extra dance lessons, and they say, I'm coming back. I really want this. Or some of them listen to that feedback and decide to pivot. They say, okay, I'm going to go another avenue and apply for another team completely. So there's this one girl, her name's Ari. She moved to Dallas, got a job there, took extra classes, trained with a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader for an entire year, only to come back, make it through to the end of training camp, and she gets cut at the very end. The way she responded, I was very impressed with. And I found out that afterwards, she auditioned and became a Miami Dolphins NFL cheerleader. So instead of being so angry and quitting and saying, okay, I'm not good enough. This is the second time, the second year I've put my life on hold to do this, and I still didn't make it. Instead of internalizing that and saying, oh, I'm not good enough, she just pivoted and went a different direction. So when you think of this in terms of being a writer, I really related to all of that in the sense that if you get rejected from a certain literary agent, or if your manuscript, after being on submission to a publisher, gets rejected, there are so many arbitrary, subjective reasons why. And you have the opportunity to wallow, to quit, to say, okay, I'm not good enough, my manuscript isn't good enough, and really internalize that feedback and get down on yourself. Or like these America's sweethearts, these Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, you can take that, be gracious for the opportunity, even though it's really hard and frustrating. And definitely there are times where it was just timing or there's no reason given at all why your book was cut from the team, so to speak. You can always go back to the drawing board, go back to your list, research, send it out to another batch of agents, send it out to different publishing houses, indie publishers, or you can also take that feedback and, like the one girl did, she took extra classes. She decided to hire a mentor who worked with the Dallas Cowboys. You could also take that feedback, hire an external editor, hire someone, or reach out to someone at the publisher, your dream publishing house. Research on LinkedIn, on Twitter, I guess it's called X now. See if there's any way you can connect with someone in a genuine way, coming from a place of wanting to learn, wanting to better yourself, and then reapply. You won't have to often wait a year. Sometimes it might take a year to get your manuscript into that place. Like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, it took them another year to be able to reapply for the team, get themselves into shape. But with your manuscript, maybe it'll only take you another couple months and then you will finally get that yes. So I really like thinking about it in that sense of not letting criticism and rejection defeat you, but actually empower you to look internally, pivot, take a pause, and recalibrate. Because what this kind of shows you is you can have everything in place. You can have an incredibly tight manuscript ready to go. You can have a timely book. You can have the perfect author brand and website all ready to go. You can have the MFA in your back pocket, all of the accolades and credentials, and you still might not make the team for something as simple as they already have too many other authors in that genre. There's not enough open spots right now, but it doesn't necessarily mean there won't be open spots for you in the future or at another team, another publishing team. And I really think that's important to remember to try to be positive about it. It's very easy. And I do this all the time of taking it to heart, taking it personally. Take it all with a grain of salt. Oftentimes there is feedback where it's something that you can work on, but at the end of the day, you can also be perfect. Like these Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, in every aspect, they hit all of the criteria and they still don't make it. But instead of accepting defeat, they all get back up. Their bounce back rate is incredibly quick. They don't wallow in self-pity for months and weeks. They say immediately after getting that feedback, okay, tomorrow I'm going to research and figure out my next step. It sparks a fire under them. They become even more determined to make it. And I think that's something to be admired and to take note of. And then even going a step further, there is one cheerleader on the show. They highlight a few of them. Her name is Victoria. Her mom was a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, so there's a legacy aspect. She is very fascinating. I believe she's this breakout star from the series. But she makes the squad. She is a fourth year veteran. And that's another thing. They're only allowed to be cheerleaders for 5 years, but they all have to reapply. There's vets and there's rookies every single year, even if it's your fourth year being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, you still have to reapply every single year. And that's kind of like being an author. Every single year, every single book, you have to reprove yourself. So even once you do get that publishing deal or you do get in your foot in the door and you make the team, you still have to keep proving yourself, keep improving. You cannot rest on your laurels, just like these girls every single year have to stay at the top of their game. So no one technically is safe. It doesn't mean that once you make the team, you're on it. You kind of have to keep hustling and keep proving yourself. But I really felt for this girl, Victoria. She's a fourth year veteran. She comes back. I found that the coaches were extremely hard on her for some reason. I have no idea why. I don't know if they were trying to really not show nepotism by being extra hard on her, but anyway, as an aside, I just felt that they unfairly judged her. But even once she makes the team, it's her fourth year, within the team, she again faces another level of criticism and rejection. So there are some girls that are chosen to be the team leader, and she is not chosen. And that is one of her dreams. She's always wanted to be a team leader to help champion the rookies, and they don't pick her. So again, it's kind of like being at a publishing house. They sometimes have their darlings, their literary sweethearts who are the favorites, and you might not necessarily get the same attention or devotion from the coaches or from the editors. And it's how do you handle that? Do you let it defeat you? Do you get envious? Do you let it get you down? Do you stop putting in effort because you say, oh, they're not even noticing the effort that I'm putting in anyway? Victoria, she takes it on the chin. She actually sits down with one of the girls that is chosen to be team leader, asks her opinion. How do you think I'm doing? Is there anything else that I can kind of show to the coaches? And at the end of the day, she kind of just realizes, I don't need their approval anymore. I am enough. I've shown over the years to them, but also most importantly to myself, that I am an incredible cheerleader, that I am talented, I'm a good person, and I would have been a good leader. They just kind of overlooked me. So really the lesson there is, as a writer, as an author, if you're feeling rejected or unfairly criticized, or there's favoritism with your literary agent, they are promoting another author or putting their book on submission over yours, or if you're with a publisher and you're seeing that there's this other author on the roster who is getting more press than you, there's a bigger marketing budget, I hope you don't take that and feel as though you're inadequate and let that defeat you. I hope you feel your own self-worth. Speak up if you feel that you need to, if you feel that you are being treated unjustly. And at the end of the day, I hope you know that just like in cheerleading, just like in writing, there are so many aspects that are subjective. You can be absolutely perfect, talented, have the best writing technique. You can have everything going for you, and sometimes just the timing doesn't work out. There aren't enough spots on the team, and it doesn't mean that you are a bad writer or that your book won't be published. It just might mean not right now, but someday soon. So that's today's episode, just a lesson on rejection and criticism that I was reminded of while binge watching the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, America's Sweethearts on Netflix. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day, a great evening, wherever you are. Until next time.